Hi guys, welcome back to the DxO PhotoLab series. Now this week we're going to talk about noise reduction. Noise reduction has been DxO's sweet spot for quite a number of years. It's been by far the best noise reduction tool in the market. Whereas Lightroom, the competition, has been comically bad up until last year. 2023, Adobe upscaled the noise reduction facilities in Lightroom and they are much improved. So what we're going to do to liven this rather dry subject up this week is to compare PhotoLab's noise reduction with Lightroom's noise reduction using the same photographs so we can get an actual almost scientific comparison side by side. Okay, let's get into it. But before we do, I almost forgot, nip down below the video and give us a like or a subscribe if you're not already subscribed. It's really appreciated and it helps the channel. Thanks a lot, guys. Let's get into it. One of the problems about making a video about noise is visual interest. What can I put on the screen that's going to be vaguely interesting? After all, we're talking about loads of multicolored dots on a black screen. Well, I'm going to try something a little bit different in this video, so you're going to get a lot more of me and a lot less of the screen. But we are going to have pictures of black screens, pictures of multicolored dots on the screen, just to illustrate the issues that we're facing as we go along. Now, what we're going to cover here are three things. We're going to cover DxO PhotoLab 7 and the noise reduction facilities available there. We're going to cover Adobe Lightroom and the new noise reduction that's available in Lightroom. And we're going to look at DxO PureRAW. Now, PureRAW uses the same denoising engine as DxO PhotoLab. However, what PureRAW is really good for is if you happen to be a legacy Lightroom owner and you want a little bit more flexibility, let's say, you can pre-process your pictures in PureRAW, bring them back into Lightroom and process them from there. So there's a certain advantage to that. However, this video is going to pit one software against the other. We're going to test, most unscientifically, purely subjectively, on a range of raw pictures, or rather copies of the original raw picture of one particular scene. Now, this scene was shot at dawn or just before dawn in the Picos de Europa. It was shot at a very high ISO. I'll tell you what that was in a minute when I go and look at the screen. And there is noise blighting this picture. So we're going to treat the picture as well as we can in all three softwares, and we're going to have a look at the results, and I'm going to comment a little bit. Now, the first thing we need to talk about is actually noise itself. Where does it come from? What does it look like? And what can we do to get rid of it? There's very broadly two types of noise. One is the noise that comes from light. So what light it consists of is effectively photons emitting signal. And that signal is not always constant, so you can take this identical picture of the identical scene and get a very, very slight variation in that. Now, we can't really do very much about that, and so I'm flagging it as a type of noise, but we're really concerned with digital noise. Digital noise comes from a variety of places, but broadly the processor. Now, to understand what's going on here, we need to make a quick visit to what happens in the processing of a RAW file. So in your sensor on the camera, what is happening is that the The sensor is divided into things that we're going to call photosites. They're not pixels until after the conversion process has gone on. And what the photosite does effectively has a red, green, or a blue filter placed above it. Now, there are as many photosites in your picture as there are pixels on the sensor. So your pixel is rated effectively at the same number. And the numbers of red, green, and blue filters is not a complete constant, right? The human eye favors green, and so there are more green filters than there are red filters in a typical camera sensor. And this is true of almost every sensor that I'm aware of. They all use the same system. It's the Bayer system, and that technology underpins modern sensor technology. So what happens when you bring this file, this rather green file, because it's got twice as many green photosites, into a RAW processor? If you could see it without what's called the demosaicing process, you would see a very green picture indeed. And if you magnified that up, you'd see the red and the blue pixels as well. It predominantly looks green because there's twice as many green pixels in there. Now, demosaicing is the process of building accurate color information using proprietary algorithms that are proprietary to every manufacturer, be that Adobe, be it DxO, whoever it might be. And that rebuilds the color in the individual pixels. So it's providing hue and luminance values for each of red, green, and blue. So effectively picking up the missing 2 in each pixel. And that's what gives us our color. Now, variations in particular sensors, you might say that Canon color is slightly different to Sony color, and you might be right. And that is down to the recording of the hue and luminance values, or rather the luminance values in particular at sensor level, depending who the manufacturer is. So that's where that variation comes from. Now, this demosaicing process, what do you think? It's run by an algorithm. Do you think it's 100% accurate? Do you think it's prone to perhaps slight mistakes where something has been overexposed or underexposed? How total, if you like, is the information compared to an analog light wave? Well, not surprisingly, the answer is not 100%, and demosaicing in itself can produce noise as a side effect. Now, having got that out of the way, we can now look at the effectively 2 different types of digital noise that you're going to come across in your photographs, and those are luminance and color noise. Okay? Now, I've just said that noise is present in every photograph. Now, let's have a quick look and see if we can prove that. Now, I've taken a photograph using a Canon 5DS 50 megapixel sensor. Leave the lens cap on. There is no light reaching that sensor whatsoever. Completely black as you're likely to ever see. Let's have a look at that picture in Lightroom. Okay, here we are in Lightroom, and here is the black picture. Okay, now take a look at the histogram up here, top right, and you will see that this is completely black. There is no information in there. Have a look for confirmation in the tone curve. it's completely black. There's nothing there. What happens if we amplify this picture? And this gives you a clue as to where a lot of noise comes from. Now, if we go to this picture, we can clearly see noise, largely color noise. And I've ramped up the exposure by 5 stops. I've ramped up the highlights, little bit the whites, and decreased the blacks, purely so that we can actually see this on the screen. I know that some of you might be watching this on a mobile phone. You'll be looking at the black screen going, what the hell is he talking about? So I've exaggerated this. This is what this actually shows us, is that there is noise inherent in the process. Okay? What we need to do now is to put each software through its paces, and I'll show you the controls, if you like, within each software package, and we'll take that from there. So let's go back to the screen. Okay, so let's go back to the computer and we'll look at the picture that we're going to use as an example. I've got copies of this picture and we're going to try them out in all the different technologies. So here we go. This was the picture that I was talking about. It was exposed at 1600 ISO, so we can expect there to be quite a bit of noise in here. And let's blow this picture up to 400%. So what are the issues we've got with this? We've got visible fringing on the rock edge. We've got a lot of noise. Let's push that exposure up on the detail, and you can see that this is an absolute mess. It's a riot of noise, a total cacophony. So any form of amplification, which is what we're getting when we increase ISO in camera and when we increase exposure in software, is going to increase that noise. It doesn't just make it more visible, it actually increases it because you're amplifying it. Okay, so you can see that quite clearly here. Loads of noise. Actually, now what I'm going to do is to go to the noise processing module in Lightroom. Now, one thing to point out here is that noise reduction and sharpening go hand in hand. The process of demosaicing and the process of noise reduction create slightly soft images. So sharpening is part of the process. So if you're doing this manually, you're going to want to do denoise, little bit of sharpening. If you're doing it using AI-assisted algorithms, you're going to get the sharpening thrown in. So first off, let's have a look at the noise reduction. So back to the monitor. Noise reduction, denoise. Now this would be the AI-assisted denoise, and I can simply click that and Lightroom starts to load the data for the picture. Here it comes. So we've gone into spinning wheel mode. Excellent. And there it is. Okay, so that's the noisy version. It's now doing the processing on this preview part. You got a lot of visible color noise in there. No way are we going to actually hit the enhance button, because you'll see here 22 minutes. Okay, so here's the preview. This is a tiny little bit of the picture, very comparatively few pixels, and we've processed that ahead of time. And you can see, if you look, you can look pretty closely at this, and remember that this is massively I was going to say amplified, but it's massively magnified. You can see the color noise is completely gone. So this has done a pretty good job. We can go and have a look in a second at one that I prepared earlier, but normally what I would do here is hit the enhance button. If I wasn't perhaps happy with the amount of noise reduction that's gone on here, I might increase noise. Generally I start off at 50, but I knew that this was a particularly noisy shot. Okay, so we'd hit the enhance button, and I'm going to hit cancel now, and we'll go to the picture that has been already operated on. I'll wait for it to resolve. Here it is. And there's your same piece of the picture, more or less, and you can see that there is virtually no visible noise in there at all. Now, what I suspect is that it may perhaps have lost a little bit of detail, but broadly that is pretty damn good. Let's have a look at that in fit mode. Take it back to there. You've got a pretty presentable picture out of something that was not presentable at all. So this, I think, is impressive. I think if I was a Lightroom user, I would be very, very happy with this. And actually, this would work for a lot of use cases. If I were to do this manually, you've got luminance and color noise separated out. And it's a question of, let's go back to our original. It's a question of ramping up the noise manually basically until you get it right. So color noise, you probably need to push that up a little bit. Let's go back to 400 here. Okay, and at 50, this isn't bad. I'll take that up a little bit more. Yeah, and you can see that as I'm pushing that up, you can see that it is, if you like, getting more vague in the background there. So I'll take that right back to 50. And this one is very much a matter of, I'm not going to say trial and error, but it's very much a matter of experience. You'll begin to see, you'll look at the picture, see the amount of noise, and know roughly where you should go. And this gets better over time. There's no magic bullet to make this work perfectly every time. It's a manual process. And noise reduction takes a long time. So I think, having looked at Lightroom, I think I'd be pretty happy with this if I was a Lightroom user, to be perfectly honest. Let's now have a look at the opposition. Let's have a look at DxO. So bringing up PureRAW. Now the PureRAW interface, used as a standalone tool, you can drag and drop your RAW file straight into here, and that will then give you some options. Okay, so let's have a go at that. I've got my RAW files are up here, and I'm going to take the copy, just so we don't get confused, add it in there. Add to queue. And I get to choose between DeepPRIME and DeepPRIME XD. Now what I will do for this test is to turn all these optical corrections off, because that makes a difference. It's going to remove the haloing that we saw around the edges of the rocks, for example. I'm going to output it in DNG because I want to do further processing on it. And you can you can rename the file, you can set a destination. And DeepPRIME is one of 4 technologies that are available to you in, I'm getting all the names mixed up now. DxO PhotoLab gives you the choice of 4. It gives you the choice of high quality, prime, DeepPRIME and DeepPRIME XD. High quality will get it applied to almost every picture. I think you should apply high quality to every picture. In fact, it will improve the picture, improve the quality of the RAW. Prime, noise reduction, really added to the top. So any picture with sort of mild noise or mild but still obvious noise, prime's probably enough. DeepPRIME is AI assisted. It's more aggressive. And DeepPRIME XD is more aggressive still. It will give you a lot more detail, but it might not suit every picture you take. So, for example, in a lot of landscape photography, we're seeing an effect called the autumn effect, which applies a soft glow to various highlight areas. DeepPRIME XD would fight against that sort of processing. It would want to sharpen and produce a more exact picture. So it's different strokes for different pictures. So I would choose between DeepPRIME XD and add to queue, and then I would hit process now. Okay, and add to queue and hit process now. That's how DeepPRIME works. That is how PureRAW works. All right, so I can invoke PureRAW from within Lightroom as well. So I can go to File, I can go to Plugin Extras, and I can go Process with DxO PureRAW 3. So I can invoke it from within the app, and I can invoke it from outside the app. Okay, invoking it from within the app will put the picture into the queue, and it's down to me then just to choose which flavor of processing I want and to switch on and off the options. Let's have a look at PhotoLab. Can't believe it, I got the acronym right first time. In PhotoLab, which should be coming to a screen near you any second. This is the same picture. Now, your denoising technologies are found in details, and these are the choices that I alluded to a few seconds ago. So you've got high quality, instant rendering, you've got prime, which is called fast rendering, DeepPRIME and DeepPRIME XD. Now you've got the preview window here, and I will warn you right up front, we've seen in the Adobe software it estimates 22 minutes to do the processing. DxO is no different. So these fast rendering is substantially less than 22 minutes, but it's quite basic noise reduction. The AI assisted DeepPRIME and DeepPRIME XD will take every bit as long as Adobe. It goes with the territory. So what happens in DxO is that the noise reduction doesn't take place until you export the image. So be prepared for extremely long export times when you're applying noise reduction. I think personally that this makes DxO perhaps more usable because you can simply export the image and go for a cup of tea. Excellent. So your choices are here. You've got luminance and chrominance, so that is luminance and color noise. Low frequency noise, dead pixels, which are an issue on with sensors. If you look very closely on some cameras, you'll see some tiny little white areas in the picture. So these are your controls to add and assist the AI here. So let's have a look and see what happens when we run these through. So this one is the one that's been processed in DeepPRIME already. Might be fairer to look at this one in Lightroom, because this has been processed in DeepPRIME. It was sent there from Photoshop, and I turned off all the optical corrections, so our chromatic aberration is still evident here. That would go if I did the appropriate correction here. If I turn this on in lens corrections, that would remove that. But we're really concentrating here on the noise. All of the color noise is gone, and remembering that this is at 400%, we've got a pretty fantastic result. There is some grain visible, there's a lot of detail, and this is not the most aggressive version. I think this is, to be honest, pretty impressive. Let's see if we've got one for DeepPRIME XD. We have. Let's have a look at that one. Give it a second to render. Here it is. Okay, let's just turn up the volume on this. So we've got like for like. Okay. Now, I think for me there is a visible difference here. This is undoubtedly more detailed. Let's just swap them again. So let's just check that we've got the exposures correctly matched. 1.25. I think I'm slightly over that here. Yeah, that's an exact match. I think we've lifted the shadows. Let's drop those shadows back, drop the whites back. Okay, those pictures should be now exactly matched. So let's have a look again. Yep, so I think there's no doubt there's more detail in the XD version. Now remember that these were very noisy pictures, so I think in probably 80% of ordinary pictures where there is perhaps a little noise, DeepPRIME on its own would be perfectly good enough. But this level of noise reduction that we're seeing here, I think is the better of the two renderings. And I think it's probably the better of the three renderings, if I'm perfectly honest. Let's have a look also at the enhanced noise reduction here. Let's take that up to 1.25. Okay. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here, this is the Adobe rendering. What I'm seeing here is the slightly more blockiness or blotchiness, if you like, to the mountains around here. This doesn't look realistic to me. Had I done this manually, I might have been able to get a better result, but using simply the AI-assisted approach, I think that DeepPRIME XD produces the better result. Yeah. So you're possibly seeing the beginnings of a blotchiness here, but it's not as pronounced, not quite as pronounced as the Adobe version. But having said this, I really do think we're pixel peeping here, and we're really looking for very, very tiny differences. Take this back to its full size. If we go to fit here, I think you've got a perfectly presentable noise-free picture. And I think if we take this one back to full size as well, similarly, you've got a perfectly presentable noise-free picture. Interesting to look at the amount of light going on here. These have got identical settings. So we've got a little bit of colour coming back into those cliffs. A little bit of colour coming back here. And I just think it's a very difficult comparison. I do think XD is slightly preferable. I think that concludes the demonstration. I think what we're saying here is that all three of these software packages are now producing excellent noise reduction, and I don't think that was the case a year ago. I think, if I'm right, Adobe brought this in around about June last year, so this is very new. I think we can expect it to improve again. So I think the race is on here. I'm going to call this in favor of DxO at this point, because I think it gives me more control even when I'm using the AI-assisted one-button versions. I can still tweak that a little bit. With Adobe, it's more opaque, it's more trial and error, but have no doubt that it will improve. Okay, so I hope this wasn't too boring. I hope I've managed to make this more lively, and we will be coming back for another video next Tuesday. Okay, we'll see you then. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.